YNW Melly'S court case is in a very critical condition right now. As the evidence grows, YNW Melly'S rap career, as well as the chance of his freedom, is starting to disappear each week. Now, it was just reported that YNW Melly'S cell phone was brought into the law enforcement's office for inspecting. After a data extract was done to YNW Melly'S cell phone, a video ended up coming out of YNW Melly on camera admitting to doing an act towards YNW Juvy and YNW Sakchaser. Now, we have so much new evidence to talk about in this video. Let's get straight into it. Now, YNW Melly and the YNW boys, they were driving home from a late night of recording at a studio when suddenly a car pulls over YNW Melly'S car on the road. A few minutes go by of a standstill happening in the middle of the road. Then, the car who pulls over YNW Melly'S absolutely starts lighting up YNW Melly'S vehicle. Now, YNW Melly explains this as a kind of like a war zone happening out in the middle of the street. Like, I'm talking some GTA type stuff going on. Now, YNW Melly and everybody in the car, they had no choice but to just duck for cover in their vehicle, which got hit very, very hard. It was reported that nobody hopped out of the other person's vehicle, or at least that they saw anyway, to get closer to Melly's during the altercation. But somehow, all sides of YNW Melly'S car got lit up. Sadly, Juvy and Sakchaser, they didn't make it through this, but thankfully, YNW Melly and YNW Bortlen made it out just fine. The damage that was done to YNW Melly'S car was crazy. It's a miracle that Melly got out of this alive. Once it was over, the car ended up driving off, leaving YNW Melly and Bortlen in shock, wondering what just happened, also while trying to save their best friends. Instead of calling an ambulance, YNW Melly then insisted on driving Juvy and Sakchaser himself to the hospital. Now, this took around 40 minutes to do so. Meanwhile, here's what the law enforcement believe happened on that night. After a late night of recording at the studio, Juvy, Sakchaser, Bortlen, and Melly hopped in their Jeep, started heading home. They ended up taking a back road home to skip early morning traffic, and while driving, the car was then pulled over. Law enforcement don't know exactly what happened on the inside of the car, but the theory is once the car was pulled over, a distraction was made inside of the car to catch Juvy and Sakchaser off guard, and then that is when YNW Melly did the act towards Juvy and Sakchaser. Now, after the act was done, the Jeep was then brought into a side parking lot where nobody was in sight and nobody could hear firearms being used. That's when YNW Melly and Bortlen roughed up the vehicle, making it appear as if it happened and went through a drive-by, which would then make YNW Melly and Bortlen's excuse on what happened more believable at the hospital when they took Juvy and Sakchaser there. Which it also could explain as to why it took them 40 minutes to get Juvy and Sakchaser medical attention. Now, here is the latest court documents in the case. Now, I want you, the viewer, to be the judge if you believe that he's innocent or guilty after hearing this evidence. Now, the first document states, then also, we have a video of Mr. Demons admitting to doing an act towards two individuals in the head. Now, I had to change a few of those words. Mr. Demons is YNW Melly'S last name, in case you're unaware. In the next court document, it states, this video was on Mr. Demon's cell phone, which was brought to my office by Jameson Francis. And that is how we had that. And that was all of the evidence that Your Honor has. The next court document states, these particular cell phones, which were both iPhone 10s, were on the T-Mobile network. And so T-Mobile has a very interesting feature where it will tell you the environment that the cell phone is in. So from these cell phone records, I can tell you the exact moment that Demons got out of the car and staged the drive-by location. Now, as I did mention earlier in the video, The law enforcement, they believe that YNW Melly ended up doing the act towards Juvy and Sakchaser and then drove the car off of the road into a side parking lot where nobody could hear a firearm being used or that they can be seen using it. And a lot of people are now claiming that are around YNW Melly, and yet let me remind you, this has not been confirmed, but it is starting to look like YNW Melly has been mentally preparing for the fact that he could be getting sentenced to life in prison. Now this kind of leads into YNW Melly's last appearance on social media. Now 1 month ago this photo was taken of YNW Melly in jail, and let me remind you, the quality, it's bad, it doesn't look that great, and nor has this even been confirmed or not, but YNW Melly looks pretty rough in this photo right here, sadly. Now again, it could just be the low quality. Sadly, many people believe that YNW Melly is starting to realize that the evidence that the law enforcement are now starting to gather on him each and every week is starting to get very serious, and I have to agree, even though I really don't want to. I can show several photos of YNW Melly behind bars where he's looking very, very happy. He's flexing his diamond grills and even telling people on the phone through jail that he's going to be getting released very soon and things in that nature. But for the last few months, we have not heard anything from Melly. If anything, allegedly he's been told to just stay quiet while behind bars. And now this photo was released a month ago of YNW Melly looking very rough. Now YNW Melly's cell phone being obtained by law enforcement could now be the final piece of the evidence that the law enforcement need to pretty much put this case at rest. YNW Melly's cell phone was being held by his music manager, and that's when they put the warrant out for the cell phone. The man in the document is actually YNW Melly's manager, who ended up handing over the cell phone to law enforcement because if he didn't, he would be catching charges of his own. YNW Melly has a court hearing literally next month, and that will determine whether the trial is ready to start or it's going to be another year-long wait. Now, what do you guys personally believe? From the evidence I shared in today's video, it's starting to look like it is getting very serious for YNW Melly. Law enforcement, it took them 2 years to get some significant evidence against YNW Melly, and well, the evidence is looking pretty severe at this point. If any new evidence comes out about Melly's case, I will make sure to put out a video within minutes of it happening. If you're new, hit the subscribe button. Anyways, I'm ending the video here and I'm out. Peace.